folks, my name is Itimi and you're welcome to another episode of Founders Connect. Here we have conversations with amazing entrepreneurs and operators in the African tech ecosystem. Today in this video, I'm having a conversation with Jude Dike. He's the co-founder and CEO of GetEquity. So stay and watch this video to the end. Let's get into it.
Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Itimi, a change maker, professional, and creative who is passionate about growing people and growing businesses. Like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and please always share my videos. It promises to always be impactful and insightful.
Hi, Jude.
Hi, Peace. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for honoring me with this. I've been looking forward to having this conversation for a while. I'm like, yeah, we'll find the right time. I like that Nairobi is the right time, so
yeah.
So good. How's the event been, or how was it?
It was actually interesting. I think I should have come with more of my team.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Was it just you that came?
Yeah, just me. I actually didn't plan on coming for the tech summit.
Right.
So I planned on coming for Wizard's event and just to touch base because we had opened up in Nairobi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we opened up. Basically, we partnered and launched in East Africa generally. And then I wanted to just come touch base with our partners and everything. But I think Wizard just told me about the tech summit. I was like, yeah, you should come through.
Okay. So maybe the next one, you're definitely going to
I'm coming with the squad, full on.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so tell me where you're from. Just like, what was childhood like for you? What are your like early memories and experiences?
Childhood was interesting. I mean, we were very sheltered. Where
did you grow up?
I grew up in Lagos, actually. Okay. I think I've always grown up around Yaba. My life is weird. I don't move much.
Do you live in Yaba now?
I do live in Yaba now. I live 5 minutes away from my from the house I grew up in.
Okay, it's very interesting.
Yeah, very weird. But I mean, I grew up sheltered as I'm the only boy, I'm the only son. I have two other sisters, but my parents were civil servants. When civil service was what civil service was, so everything was quite good. It was we're quite sheltered. I was one of those kids who had like a computer at a very young age. I think I was 4 when I got my first PC. So for me,
very early.
Yeah, I was very early. I say that my mother was my first investor. So it was really interesting. It was a thing of, because we were never allowed to go out outside of my compound actually. So we and the kids who lived there, we were quite close, to go to each other's houses, watch movies, they'll come to my house, play computer games. But I think that was like my first ever foray into like tech. So I always wanted to be like the Zeta Project. I always said I was going to be a scientist. I didn't know what scientist that was, but I just wanted to be like Dexter, Jimmy Neutron, and
right. At least you knew who those people were.
Yeah, exactly. It was interesting until I got into secondary school and I was about to enter university, and that's where it was like, I think between or before that point, I discovered white hat and black hat hacking, right?
Interesting.
And it was very interesting.
First of all, for those of us that don't know, what is white hat and black hat?
Okay, so hacking is hacking, right? It's you basically intruding into digital services, so banks, whatever, right? But a white hack is someone who is, let's just say for lack of a better word, the good guy.
Actually like an ethical hacker.
It's an ethical hacker, basically. So the type of person that people come in, come and help us test and make sure everything is secure. But black hat is like, I'm here I'm here to get things. So I'd always loved the idea. I didn't know which I wanted to be, but I always loved the idea of just being able to do that. And the way movies showed it was always so wild. You just hear I mean, it was super fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think, that was when I made up my mind that, I'm going to go into computer science and I'm going to be a hacker. But for the schools to choose, I don't think I ever had any other school apart from UNILAG, right? In retrospect, very bad choice.
Why?
The uni system in Nigeria was horrible. Because I kept thinking, I had this really annoying idea. Well, now it's an annoying idea that I was going to go to an Ivy school, right? So I wanted to do the MITs, the Stanfords, and so in my head it was like, I'll go to UNILAG, I'll finish UNILAG, and then go do masters in like a Stanford or an MIT. Yeah, UNILAG told me, no, that's not happening. But then, funny thing is, my father himself wanted me to study engineering. You know how parents are.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? My dad literally put it like, you're going to school to study what they're doing in Computer Village. That was literally.
Ouch!
That was literally, in the man's mind, it was like, literally, and this is because, he had friends who were in what they call IT, right? So, and back then, telecoms was the booming thing. So it was a thing of you study electrical engineering, then you do like Cisco, CCNA and stuff, you go work in telecoms, you're a big boy. You're riding the big cars. All of that is good. In retrospect, I understand. Like, the man didn't want me to suffer.
Yeah.
Because back then, and this was 2011, nobody knew, there wasn't anything like tech, right? Nobody knew software engineers like that. So the only people who did anything software related were those that would help you put music in your phone in Computer Village. So in his mind, it was like, you're going to Computer Village. He was like, why don't you just drop out? I'll find you something. Them there. So back then I had a private tutor. So me and him shared like this passion for the whole hacking and everything, right? So he used to tell me about, he was the person who told me the first thing about Wikipedia, right? So he used to tell me, just give me things to read and everything, because he was my math tutor. No, he was my physics and chemistry tutor. So I had math and further maths. And so my mother was just there as like the sideline person as per, well, I really want you to do what you want to do, but then at the same time, are you really sure? Like, I've not seen anything like computer programming before. It's always Computer Village people. So what's happening? But then, even at least my mother took her time to even ask people, right? But the clincher was when my tutor came. My mother asked him, and then sat my mother down and told her about tech is this kind of thing that's becoming, that's coming in. There's like a Microsoft, there's a Google and everything. So in our minds, like, okay, fine, you can do what you want to do. Yeah. My father was still adamant, and the man wanted me to go to Ibadan, which is weird. To do what? Because I'm like, so that's US everybody. Again, right? I was very sheltered, right? So my view of Ibadan is completely different from actually having been to Ibadan and seen. So I was like, you won't send me to the bush? Why? I was like, I thought the man hated me, right? So in my own head, so this was now me and my mother versus my father, right? It was the thing of, I'm definitely going to UNILAG. But you ended up in UNILAG. I ended up in UNILAG.
Did you have any like favorite memories from UNILAG?
Unfortunately, they were all like party related, but still. I got into UNILAG, and it was, first off, the man threatened, I won't pay your school fees. And then my mother looked at him like, then my UNILAG school fees was like 10K. So we just looked at him like, I don't understand. At that time, my secondary school pocket money was probably 10K. Right, so I was like, I don't understand. That's not happening. Yeah. But I think by the moment I entered, he was calm. Yeah. He had friends who were in private. He had friends who their kids were in private uni. For some reason, my parents never liked private uni, and I never did too, because I always felt like I would get expelled quite easily. I always have a thing with authority, right? Especially, so we have a thing in Nigeria where authority is never questioned. You just have to answer it. And I wasn't raised like that, right? So if you want me to do something, you have to explain to me why it's supposed to be done that way. Right. And then in retrospect, I met some of my friends who went to private unis. I will withhold names of those private unis who came back to UNILAG to do diploma because they got expelled. So I was like, I'll probably waste my father's 3-4 million naira, and then the man disowned me. So let's skip all this.
Makes sense. So after you studied computer science, obviously you started programming early, right? And while you're doing computer science, I assume that you're already programming.
from my very first.
Right. So how did you maybe get your first job or build stuff?
Yeah. So the very first program I wrote was, so again, right, I got in because I wanted to hack, and then when I found out when hacking, I was like, pfft. So I used to just go to my friends' classes in engineering, right? Because I was like, I'm not doing this shit. But the very first computer programming class we had, and I ran this code and the thing worked, I was mind blown. I was like, shit, this thing, it makes me feel like God right now, right? It was like creating something from nothing. And since then, everything, it was almost like, I don't know what word to use. I think it's what people would say is the metaverse right now, but it was like that in real world. It was like I got open to a new world of
possibility.
So it was like you could literally try to code, and I tried to code anything. So I kept just anything that came to my head to build. I built a music player, I built a media player, I built this, and then by my third year I got into website development, right? And that was when the main clincher started. So I think also by that year, that was exactly when a friend of mine who was one of my roommates actually reached out to me and was asking if I could develop a website for someone, blah, blah, blah. At this point in time, I think I just blurted out, yeah, I'll do that. And I just blurted out 50K. And she agreed. Of which at the end of the day I really got to see 5K out of it. I didn't mind, right? It was just amazing. Like what I like to do, you were telling me to do it, and I still get paid.
Yeah.
Because I was actually looking for things to build. So in this case now, I could say, oh, I built this and people are using it. Because before I was building shit, I was feeling like a god, right? But then it was only something that my friends were using. But now I would build stuff and then people would use. It was crazy. Yeah. And I kept doing that. She just kept handing me things to build and I kept building them. And then after a while, another one of my classmates reached out to me and was like, oh, there's this guy he works for, and the guy wants to, and this was I think in my 4th year or final year, that he wants to build a website, so for both front end and back end. He'd handle front end, but he wanted me to handle back end. And I was like, oh, and he asked me how much. I was like, 70K. So he takes me to this guy's office. He says, I shouldn't say anything. Let him do the negotiations. So he takes me to this guy's office, and then after they finish talking, and then the guy goes, okay, so how much are we going to do this thing? My guy just goes 120K each. I'm there like,
but I said 70.
And then the guy just goes, okay, fine. This is a contract, you sign it here. It's going to take, I think it was like a month or 2 months. But I got home, I got back to my hostel and I was just mind blown. I can still remember exactly the day I was when the first installment came in. First installment was 100K. Because the guy was like, yeah, I'm going to send you this money. I don't want any stress, just build my stuff and give it back to me. I mean, I built that thing quite easily. It was like sharp. Yeah. I was like, I'm done with backend. How far? And since then, I started working with the guy. His name is Chuka. I started working with Chuka, built sites for Chuka. It was an interesting foray. Even from the moment when I graduated, I was getting coached by 3 guys. So now it was a thing of choice. So I went back home I was tired of school, everything. So at this point now, my grades were not that good.
I know, obviously, you're coding.
In between the parties and then writing code, and UNILAG just being UNILAG, because again, like I said, I was deluding myself that I wanted to go to Ivy. So I never really went to classes. What I'd do instead is, if we had a course, I would check for the appropriate course in like Berkeley or MIT. And I use it, because in my head, I was just like preparing myself for Ivy. But then the results will come out, and you have your Nigerian lecturers.
Yeah, and you have to give them exactly what
this is not what I gave you.
Yeah.
So by my 4th year, I'd learned, okay, fine. I'd just borrow one of my friend's notes and use that to create and then my grades increased.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. I mean, UNILAG is still with my certificate. I hope my mother is not going to see this.
She probably will. I mean, don't you hope she does? Okay, cool. So, I mean, I looked through your LinkedIn and you've had like a ton of experiences. You've worked in so many places, right? You're the type of LinkedIn that somebody would look at and LinkedIn would say there's 11 more experiences for you to see and just keep going.
I've hopped around.
Yeah, so I mean, so there's Stellar Finance, there's Block, there's Sterling Bank, there's Ethereum. I mean, a lot of places. Of all of this hopping, what have been like the key milestones or the companies that probably really made a difference in who you are now as an engineer and a founder?
Okay, so as an engineer, I would say the first in fact, as an engineer, I would say majorly Concourse in terms of engineering. Sterling did a thing for me in the sense that it gave me structure. So even at that time, I was contracting for Sterling, but my friends who were also working at Sterling were building an actual product that was Go Money. I think I can say it there. So they were building Go Money, and I used to just come into the office because I've always worked remotely. Right. So meaning that a larger part of my work experience has been just me being in a corner somewhere,
and just
right?
writing code.
So now I could have a place which was like where I have my friends. I get to listen in on things that are going on, engineering stuff and everything. So it helped me grow. It gave me a kind of structure, and so employee structure. But as a founder, it was majorly EPNS, and the reason why is because
push service.
Yes, push notification service. The reason why is because I got poached I worked with HydroPay for maybe a month, and then Harsh was our engineering manager. So I got poached by him when he was starting out his own company. Because when I was leaving, then I think that was the first time I ever experienced burnouts. So I just had to leave. I cleared all I said I wasn't going to work anywhere. I wanted to take a break, right? And he reached out to me and told me, whenever you want, I have this project that I'm working on and we can talk about it. So like 6 months later, he reached out and was like, yo, this is my project. We've gotten to a point where I think we can now start scaling and I want you to join in. So I was the first ever engineering hire, which is very conversant with a lot that has happened in my life. I'm usually either the first black person there or the first engineering hire at maybe a local startup or something like that. So I mean, watching Harsh go from an engineer into a founder, I think in a way helped me to be able to go from an engineer to being a founder myself. So Harsh was an engineering manager. I've seen how he handled engineering management. It also helped me, and the fact that this time now I had friends who we all grew together into like an engineering management life cycle. But that idea of being a founder and knowing how to separate, you handling engineering things to you even being able to pitch and talk to people and having to, for lack of a better word, dumb down your engineering for them to understand made a lot of sense to me.
And then, but you mentioned that for Concourse it was as an engineer, but how?
That was the first time I had worked on a project to scale that fast. And I think that was the first time I realized that products that we work on locally, yes, I mean, they serve a lot of people, but for you to, there's some level of skill that optimization is now what is key. It's no longer about how the code you wrote and how the code you wrote was. So I worked at DexAg, which was a decentralized exchange aggregator, right? So being able to get the cheapest prices from all different exchanges. So instead of you, like, let's say, converting like DAI to ETH, in maybe any of the DeFi exchanges. Now we'll get you the best price from, let's say, 10, 12, 20 different exchanges. And now this was a hackathon project that we're now be optimizing to be a full-blown product, right? And we did. I mean, it was as at the time when it sold, or I think it pretty much sold, right? As a time when it sold, it was the fastest in the world, but it was the second largest in the world, right? So it was a big deal. the entire way we optimized everything and all of that, it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
I think that's like my major one.
That makes sense. Okay, so how did GetEquity come about? I mean, everything was really just engineering, and bam, okay, co-founder CEO. So when did that switch happen, and what was the reason for it? Like, why was it GetEquity? Why was it that product idea?
So remember when I said my first episode with Bernard, and I said I wasn't going to do anything?
Yeah.
I was doing something. So, but this time now, what I was doing was I was just tinkering with an idea, right? So in blockchain and in DeFi, we used to have this thing where someone builds out the project, they create a coin for it, right? They create a token for it, and many times you have to hire a blockchain engineer to be able to do that. So I was like, what if I could create a system where you could create a token for anything instantly, right? And I think I had someone who reached out to me that he was trying to learn blockchain and everything. So for the first time, I was like, okay, fine, let me even put this guy through. I gave him some courses, he kept coming back and everything. He's now my co-founder. Right, he kept coming back and all of that.
Is that Itimi?
No, that's William.
Okay, that's William. Okay.
William is the silent, is a quiet one.
Okay.
So during the entire process, and funny enough, we built everything on the blockchain. We did the full works. It was a full-on exchange. So now in this case, what could happen is that you as Peace, you could create a Peace coin easily, and then there's an exchange where anybody can buy and sell Peace coin. So we did that, and the idea was supposed to be for companies, right? So I mean, we built that, and entry, that was from 2019 into 2020 when I now started working at Concourse. So even at that time, I'll talk to people, oh, here's this really cool shit I did. And some would tell me, I can't remember who it was that mentioned, yo, this would make a lot of sense in venture capital. And then I had no idea what venture capital was. I didn't know what angel investing was. I didn't know what any of that was. So I started doing a bit of reading. I was like, yo, this makes sense, right? People want to be able to fund companies. In our own case, people fund DeFi projects by buying those coins. Right. So I was like, yeah, why can't people fund companies using the same mechanism? So I started having conversations with a couple of people. I mean, I had conversations with some guys at Microtraction. Then I can't remember, I think a friend of mine told me, oh, why don't you, it was like he's having conversations with Greenhouse, he'll do an intro. And I did. And it was so weird in the fact that Bumi, who is partner at Greenhouse, was maybe having like the same conversations within themselves about being able to do something like this. So it was kind of like we just clicked, right? And one major thing that happened in that instance was that because they were thinking about it and we were all looking at it from an engineering standpoint and they were looking at it from a venture standpoint, it was like, how does this bridge and how does synergy happen? And I've always been someone who is very fascinated about user experience. So the UX aspect of this working. And that's led me to do a couple of things, right? One, I took out everything blockchain related. And the reason why was because, so in my experience in DeFi, like across the world and in Africa, well, let me say in Africa, is the fact that we still have this learning curve, right, that we haven't gotten to yet. So getting people to understand addresses, I mean, now with NFTs, it's interesting, but this was 2020. The DeFi summer hadn't happened yet. So now, back then, it was getting people to understand MetaMask, addresses, all of that, gas fees.
Yeah, and it was still very complicated.
So we took that out and we're like, at first we tried to abstract it, right? But even that wasn't working. That was now getting to the time when Ethereum gas prices started skyrocketing. Because they didn't just go high, they skyrocketed. So you went from maybe paying $3 to like upload the contract to like $500. That was wild, right? And I was poor. So definitely that was not happening. So I took out everything blockchain and we did everything mainstream. But what we decided to do was to keep some core blockchain concepts. So the entire concept of tokenization. Now in this case, because tokenization won't happen on the blockchain, but tokenization will happen. It's just basically creating digital representations. I later got to find out it's an actual finance thing called securitization. Right? So, and then maybe later in English, fractionalization. But yeah, that's a major way we started. And then, first off, the name was called BaseX. My girlfriend at the time was like, this is nonsense. So I mean, I tried to explain, what it was, and then she just blanked out. She was like, she's like, wow, and then she said something. She was like, "You're so smart."
Because she didn't get anything. She
didn't get anything, which was fine because I liked the idea that I could just tell her everything that I do, right? But the one thing that she told me, because again, I was core engineer. I didn't know anything about marketing or how things should be like and all of that. So the one thing that she just told me was, yo, this name is trash. So I was like, okay, fine. I started looking for names. I started asking people for names. And with all the names that they kept sending, I think one time I was like, exchange something. I don't know why I kept wanting to use an exchange inside of it. Asset exchange, asset base, all of that stuff. And then I asked, so at that time I had hired someone to basically come up with like front end, right? Just to build out the MVP. Because I and William had built out like the original MVP, but we used like a template, HTML template, because I can't be caught dead writing HTML and CSS, right? So I got someone to build that out, to design that, and got another person to build it out. So while we're doing this, I asked the design guy, "What do you think about the name?" And then he mentioned GetEquity. I hated it. Hated it. I was like,
it's too bland.
I was like, what does that do? It's too bland. It doesn't do anything. And then he sent me two names. I think one of them was GetEquity, another thing was Equity Base or something like that. So I wanted Equity Base. So I sent like 3 other names with GetEquity to my girlfriend. And then she picked GetEquity. I was like, why? So I wanted to argue it out, but then so my girlfriend at the time and this is one of the reasons why I liked her, right? She knows how to lock and unlock me. It's that simple. She's like, nope, you're using GetEquity, and that's that. And I said, she's literally the one that
gives it. Or it's convinced you.
Because without her, I might have probably used Equity Base or something like that. Right. But then the good thing now is, talking with people, funny enough, the moment I said GetEquity, they kind of understood.
Yeah.
So again, my engineering head, I didn't know anything.
Yeah. Okay, but for some people who, might need a bit more context, what exactly does GetEquity do now?
Okay, so right now, we're in venture capital and we provide infrastructure for venture capital. So in 2 ways, right? And the first way is a B2C, which is business to consumer, which is basically mass markets. And what that means is that for any type of person, anyone at all, can invest in startups around you for as little as $10. So it's saying, for example, maybe a Laserpay, Paystack has sold, but a Laserpay, maybe a Paystack at the time, maybe a Paystack in 2015, a pharmacy, a Flutterwave. Flutterwave, if I have Flutterwave equity, my shoulder pads will be up. But yeah, companies like that, you could invest in them. And not even just tech companies, but even brick and mortar companies. So it's saying like a ShopRite, a Mr. Price. So
basically any company that wants to crowdfund, right? That wants to fundraise can come to GetEquity, list on GetEquity, and anybody can say, I want to get some shares here and use that.
Exactly. So what the entire concept was saying that we'll take out the NASDAQ model where companies want to IPO, right? And an IPO process is quite simple. It's saying that the company is selling a portion of their shares that the public can buy. That's it. So on our own end, for the company's end, in this case, was that we were targeting companies who were at the pre-seed to seed stage, right? And then investors for as little as $10. Then our B2B model now, which we launched, I think, in December, one thing we found out was that now you have companies who are doing this, right? But in fact, some companies want to be able to say, they want to be able to choose who they can let to invest in them. And so we created a B2B model, which is called deal rooms. And what that is that we're giving you everything that you see in GetEquity, right? The entire process, tokenization, people investing, that ease, we're giving you in a private silo.
Interesting.
And then we started seeing crazy use cases as we started talking to people. And then we found out, okay, we have the rise of syndicates, right? And basically syndicates is a group of people who come together, pool funds together to invest in a company. We were perfect for them.
Right.
It was now the sense of that one major thing that they've had is that there's a whole lot of friction in how you send money, how you keep records of who has sent what. But now in this case, they could all fund their GetEquity wallets. That same tokenization process of, okay, you have syndicate A wants to invest $100,000 in maybe a laser pay, right? That entire process of how investors can come, you don't now need to have multiple places where before it's like you put it in a Notion file.
Yeah.
You do this, you do that, people come, they'll read, then you tell them if you want to wire
send
money,
them a form, send them details.
So with GetEquity now, you can see everything completely via the app, right? You upload the deal memo, upload all the details.
So syndicate as a service for people who want to run that, basically. It's very nice. It's very nice.
So I mean, there's like a lot of use cases for what a deal room can do.
Yeah.
I tend to tell people deal room is just like an angel list type of infrastructure for Africa, right?
Yeah.
And it's how we angel list now. You have rolling funds, you have syndicates, etc.
Okay, so is that the big picture?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the big picture is that we power syndicates across Africa and the developing world, because I don't have power to go and fight in the US yet. The regulation.
But when you say you power syndicates, so do you mean that you guys would want them focus more on the B2B angle and let the syndicates then pull in consumers, or would they still be a consumer angle?
Oh, the consumer angle is definitely there. In fact, they're both intertwined. So now, like, that's why I said we provide infrastructure for venture capital.
Okay.
Now, when you have a scenario where syndicates on one hand are using you as an infrastructure, and then there's a consumer angle where you're providing deal flow. And deal flow is basically companies who want to raise. So another problem syndicates have is access to deal flow. It's why you would see some syndicates, some GPs with like general partners, so you can think of them as the lead person in a syndicate. So basically a GP in one syndicate, which is like the lead, right, could be an LP in another syndicate. So you're a lead member in one syndicate and you're just a member, you're just a normal regular member. And the reason why they do that is because you want to be able to see deal flow. You want to be able to see startups from this other syndicate that you can maybe bring and take an allocation into your own syndicate. So now where you tend to have a marketplace where maybe you have, and that's where we're heading to, is you have some of the best startups across Africa, right? Because we're powering syndicates on the one hand, and then we have some of the best array of startups. Those syndicates do not need to go anywhere anymore.
Right, so they can get access to the same startups and just get an allocation for their syndicate.
And all they can just do is literally, you can invest directly through GetEquity easily.
What's been the traction so far in the last 1 year plus?
I mean, we're 7 months.
7 months.
We started in July of 2021. And it's been interesting. So prior to the kind of infrastructure that we came out with, we weren't allowed to market. So we weren't allowed, yeah. It's SEC.
Okay.
We weren't allowed to do full-on marketing, but that changed, or that is changing as we're getting crowdfunding license. So now what we're doing is full-on marketing, right? But even in the 7 months that everything that we had done had been through word of mouth, we had about 6,000. We have about 6,000 users, and people have funded companies to the tune of about $460,000.
That's amazing.
So and this was literally just Nigerian companies. I mean, part of our user base is in the diaspora and Nigeria, and some across Europe, which was confusing to me at first. I mean, I was like, whoa, people from Italy are using my product, something I built. That is wild.
Yeah.
But it's been really crazy. Right now, it's actually why I'm currently in Nairobi to look at a couple of startups that we will list. I've seen.
So you guys do your own what's it called, DD, before you list the startups?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
So process is we have basically a venture team that looks through different startups and then creates an internal memo of those startups, basically saying, okay, these startups are good. This is like their flow and everything, and probably because what we're looking at is for high growth companies, right? And then probably this is how we see that this company might be in 3 years. So go ahead and list. But if it's a company where maybe for one reason or two they're not there yet, and then we send feedback to the company that, okay, maybe in another 3 months, or maybe when we see a couple of things, then we can. So it's pretty much like a VC firm or like
I was about to ask, just that now it's built on tech.
Yeah, exactly. So which is actually why another thing that we have is an IC, which is an investment committee that is under the venture team. And our investment committee is made up of investment analysts from VC firms. Right, because it's now the idea of scaling that to cover different ecosystems and different infrastructure. So now we have that in West Africa, we're doing that in East Africa. I'm greedy, right? So I'm gunning for North and South Africa also within the next coming months.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, obviously, I don't know if there's a thing like competitors in VC space, because everybody's just trying to get this.
There is. I mean, there are competitors, but we tend to look at them more as customers, right? Because at the end of the day, it's saying many of you still do your entire process flow manually. Come, let us give you the infrastructure. We might also get access to your deal flows. We can get access to your deal flows. We can request access to your deal flows if you want to partner with us in that instance. But we'll power you. We give you the infrastructure. You handle your own thing. We make money. You make money.
Yeah, makes sense. Engineer turned founder. What has been the biggest lesson so far?
That not everything is code. Not every problem can be solved with code. That's one of the crazy things, right? And even as an engineer, I've always been a product person. So I think one of the, I don't like to use buzzwords, but one of my superpowers is that I can see a product, I can see the growth pattern of that product. I can see how that product can grow from an engineering standpoint and from a product standpoint, so product roadmap. But I started seeing that there are things that I may not be good at. In fact, when I first started, fundraising was horrible because I was always talking to everyone about the tech, and most people didn't care about the tech. Right. So I was lucky in the fact that so I had Itimi. Itimi at that time was head of growth for Printivo, and we met in a very, very random thing. He was trying to build something, I was trying to build something, and then there was like a Mozilla. I can't remember what it was, whether it was an accelerator or something, and we're both in the accelerator.
Right.
So we just found out, oh shit, we're both Nigerians and all of that. And then the agreement was, okay, I'll help you with technical stuff because I'm good at technical stuff. But I'm not good at this whole growth stuff and fundraising and all that stuff. So you help me with that. So it's kind of like an exchange of, it was an exchange of talent and everything. And well, now he's on fully as our director of growth. It's been quite interesting so far.
Amazing. So my final question, I think maybe I have two questions. Is there anything that you do differently in your entire career so far? Would you maybe have dumped engineering faster and start?
Oh no, I'm always still going to be an engineer at heart. But there's one thing that I would have changed is that I might have stayed longer in some places, or I might actually have become a founder faster.
Okay.
Right.
Why would you have stayed longer in some of those companies? And maybe which companies?
Most companies, I tend to spend less than a year or about a year. And then it doesn't look good when you become a senior engineer, right? Because now, when you're trying to hire a senior engineer, you're trying to hire someone who would scale. You're looking for stability. So when you're seeing someone who has been hopping 1 year in every place, you can't build, especially if you're building like long term, you can't build around someone who might probably leave you in a year. That I learned when I started, when I became a senior engineer and I started having to answer the hard questions. But then for me, mostly it was because I was contracting. So still.
Would you then advise, because I mean, I've seen this conversation a couple of times on TL, and people are like, oh, I don't hire people that haven't spent more than 2 years. And people are like, oh, but yeah, they're hyper talented and yada, yada, yada. Would I be right to assume that you're on the side of spending longer in companies?
Yeah, so it's a two-way thing, and recently I also talked about it, right? It's a two-way thing. I advise people in your early days, soak up as much as possible. So you can, in fact, you can even do multiple jobs, right? No, I think so.
For your employees now say, but Jude, I watched your video. I'm doing like GetEquity.
Funny enough, for my employees, I really don't care.
Okay.
Especially, what I care about is you can give me what I can, literally. In fact, when I first started hiring, all of them were contractors that I was trying to put from other companies. And usually my selling or how I sold it was that, I don't really care, you can continue that one, just come and work for me. Because I needed to build as fast as possible, I needed to scale as fast as possible. And in all honesty, getting a senior person to give you 20 hours a week of their time can be way more productive than having a mid-level person give you 40 hours of their time. So in my head, it's number scrunching, right? Which would pay me better. And so far, it has paid me better.
That makes sense. So you would actually spend a bit more time in those companies, right? Or become a founder faster.
So I mean, I started my first startup right in my final year. We'd gone to the point of even venture investment, and then they ghosted us. That thing still pains me to today. It still pains me to today. They just ghosted. Like, they didn't say anything. They asked, so we had an MVP, and it was AI for customer service, right? And this was before the banking customer service type of AI chatbots. And so we had done that, we had demoed that. There was this really nice demo. I think the name of the accelerator was Fast Check or Fast something, and they reached out, we like what you're doing, all of that. How much would you require? My stupid head, I said 2 million naira. And when they asked, what do you need it for? I said to buy laptops. Because my laptop was shit. Right? I was like, to buy laptops and to rent out a space, because we're about graduating, and I definitely wasn't going back to my parents' house. So I said to buy laptops and to rent out a space. And then they were like, okay, that's fine. And they gave us like 12 more MVPs to do. I was like, I'm sorry, bros, but we're writing exams this period, and this is my final exams. So would you be willing to give us 2 months to come up with this MVP? And then that was the last email I ever got.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
very
so horrible.
Okay, all right, very nice. Is there any question that you would have wanted me to ask you that I haven't? Or that you'd have wanted to answer?
How can you register on GetEquity?
I saw your markets.
Exactly. Sure, you can pick up your phone, even right now. You can go on the Apple Store. And
you're looking at my phone. I do have GetEquity on my phone, so tell the people watching it.
Okay, so everybody, you can go on getequity.io, or you can just go to your App Store or the Android Store and download GetEquity. And after downloading, please go through the KYC process. I know it's a bit rigorous because it's finance, right? And with finances and securities, it has to be. But once you're able to get through with it, there are quite an array of interesting startups that I know for a fact are high growth startups and will do quite well. So I don't know, check them out, put your money in them.
Yeah, I do like the product. I have used it. I don't know if I've invested with GetEquity yet, but I have reached that. I think I have funded my wallet. But the reason why I'm fascinated is because I started angel investing last year. And I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like, I mean, sometimes I don't want to invest in thousands. I probably want to invest in maybe hundreds and just like put my toe in just a little bit and see what it is. And I figured GetEquity to help me do that. And then eventually you can scale up. So I think it's a really great product. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys just, build it and build that infrastructure, because it's a very tough market.
I think it's also getting to the point where maybe some of these startups raise their follow-on rounds that is when people would see the effect,
Yeah.
right? Because the thing with investments is when people see ROI, right? And again, I'm not going to be the type of person to promise you ROIs, but when people start to see ROIs, I know some companies that listed on GetEquity at a $1 million valuation are now in ODX, and I mean ODX, the moment you get in is at a $2 million valuation, and
is ODX on deck?
Yes, okay. Be on deck, and the moment you finish ODX, kind of like YC, right? So you're seeing $3, $4, $5 million valuations. Now when people are able to see the fact that they invested maybe $1,000 and now it's $4,000, $5,000. I mean, I'm an angel investor myself, so I'm happy about seeing high growth things like that.
Do you think that would come fast enough? Because I mean, angel investing is a long-term game. I mean, you might be lucky and you'll be a place like a over 5 years ago, but you might not, and it might take a bit longer. And so, if you need the traction and the ROI to kind of get people more invested in the product, how do you kind of see that playing? Okay,
and again, that's something I didn't get to mention. So we have what is called secondaries, right? And in this case, what that's saying is that if I invested in a company, and let's say for some example, it has gone up, it has increased, I can decide to sell a portion to someone who maybe still wants in that company. And what that means is that, for example, like I said, let's say a company finishes with ODX now and they raise at a $3 million valuation. Now I have 3x. My $1,000 is now $3,000. I can say I want to sell those $2,000 so I can use it to buy more companies.
Right.
And if someone says, okay, this company that is now at $3 million valuation, they can see go $10 million. So $3 million is a good enough price for them. So they buy it.
Right. So you don't have to wait for the companies to exit. It's just like when they raise another round, people can start getting ROI.
Not even when. You can do that at any time.
Right.
It's just now you having someone on the platform saying, okay, I would like to buy at this price. And a lot of people have been doing it actually. So one of the companies that I know people wanted to get into was Fluidcoins. So the first Fluidcoins was, I think, the first ever company of ours that closed their round. And people begged for them to increase it. And even till now, I know people are still trying to buy Fluidcoins. So
they're buying from people who already bought.
Exactly, and those ones are selling at a higher price.
Right. That makes sense. So are you guys going to do like a lot of education? Because angel investing in VC is still very much in a tech bubble. But when you say things like you can invest with $10, it feels like you want to reach the mass market, which is what you mentioned. So how do you actually intend to reach the mass market?
So this is now where, thank God, marketing comes in. So because we're allowed to market now, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm here, but because we're allowed to market now, then you can plug into investment groups, you can plug into plenty marketing channels, all of that. There was this recent thing that happened with Don Jazzy, where he kind of tweeted about GetEquity, and I mean, we saw a boom, right? We saw people asking questions. We have our FAQs and all of that. But so as we
have you guys raised money?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Even recently.
Okay. I'm waiting for like the next part, but I'm getting like you don't want to say.
I mean, we'll probably announce much later. Because what we did raise for was expansions, which we're currently doing right now. So again, I want to have a footprint everywhere, and I think the moment we announced WeFunder, I started getting a couple of calls from people. So we'll see how it goes. So
what's WeFunder?
So WeFunder is the largest crowdfunding platform in the US, right?
Oh, okay.
Basically, they basically crowdfunded 40% of the total amount crowdfunded in the US. Yeah, they are huge.
And you guys partner with them?
Yes. So the partnership basically entails that, I mean, they started to see traction in the sense that now there's startups who, I mean, imagine Cheaper Cash back then, and maybe Cheaper Cash wanted to raise from their African counterparts as well. So now they pass that on to GetEquity, and we handle everything across Africa. Right.
So the US companies that would typically use WeFunder can then get African consumers to invest in them using GetEquity.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So just think of if Stripe and Paystack had partnered, where Paystack would process all Stripe's payments in Africa or Nigeria. Yeah. That's literally what we're doing. All equity crowdfunding in Africa, we do that. And for startups who want to be able to raise from US investors as well, African startups, we just push that to them and they handle it.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much. I have learned a bit more about venture capital and just how it really works in the back end from this conversation. So thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing like how you guys really grow. I think it's an amazing product, and I hope people that watch check it out and make money. I mean, I would promote this because this is one of the products where when you then sort of use it, you are investing, right? Which means that you actually get money back. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching this video to the end. I'll see you in the next video. Don't leave my channel without subscribing. Peace out. Bye.